How good can a CGI Green Lantern show be, especially starring Hal Jordan, a character who just got rammed into everyone's faces across the 2010s? Well, the show opens with a straight-up execution where a poor Green Lantern is ambushed and brutally killed by 2 Red Lanterns. Yeah, it's not quite what it seems. Green Lantern, the animated series, has a pretty big cult following and is often regarded as one of the best DC animated shows. Unfortunately, it got overshadowed by Young Justice at the time, despite being the brainchild of some animation legends. The failed legacy of the film and the poor toy sales didn't really help either. What really caught me off guard was how I couldn't believe how much I fell in love with the show. It's so good, dude. The careful plotting, the charisma of every single character from the main to the minor, the clever mixture of episodic storytelling and big picture arcs, where everything is set up and is used later on to form a status quo that you don't really notice, but then you're like, oh my god. There's the perfect balance of a Saturday morning cartoon simplicity where heroes are heroes and villains are villains, but there's a sense of heaviness. Good people die, homes are destroyed, compromises must be made. It can be ruthless, but the sense of optimism baked into the show's DNA is never lost, because it is optimism that keeps everything coexisting in harmony. It's what makes every character so darn likable and what gives you a dopamine hit every episode. Let's do a quick summary. The show is 26 episodes, however it's bisected into 2 13-episode arcs. The first is Hal and Kilowog traveling, initially against orders of course, into the frontier to recon the impending Red Lantern threat, which is slowly revealed to be actually an invasion. The entire show structure follows a traditional small starship crew of characters on an adventure. You get to really live with them, sharing the development of their relationships, from disliking each other to becoming comrades. Hal Jordan is the leader, idealistic and honorable. Kilowog is funny but somewhat reckless. Aya, the ship's AI, who has a robot body, is the smart one, but is kind of naive. And there's Razer, the angry one, a Red Lantern who turned on his side because his morals opposed theirs. And wait, they're basically the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This entire journey transitions from being just about a scrappy crew to a massive galactic epic involving fleets and intergalactic war. The second half of the show is about the Anti-Monitor and the Manhunters consuming the entire universe. During everything, Aya and Razer fall in love. However, because she took the form of his long-dead wife, he rejects her, believing it's just confusion on his behalf. And also because she's a robot. So the big twist is that she becomes the main villain. But the show isn't that dark, so she redeems herself at the end, seemingly dying, but Razer is determined to find her out there. The show then ends on this cliffhanger. Amazing, guys. However, Razer does appear in Young Justice Phantoms, continuing his search, which means that's now in continuity.
What's next, kid?
The continuation of my quest.
And then Aya appears in Just League Action, also looking for him.
I feel compelled to search for something, or someone.
Then they both appear together as a cameo in Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 3, so through the power of inconsistent continuity, they do eventually find each other. Anyways, this isn't a review, but an analysis where I really want to ask, what does this show have to say about personas? Almost every aspect of the show is about managing an impression. The duty, the ring, the emotion the ring runs on, the desire to change or endure. It all goes back to regulating emotions through believing in their impression.
Something changing your mind.
That felt good.
The concept of persona I'm using here is contextualized under Irving Goffman's dramaturgical analysis of human identity, which argued the self is an impression that is constructed through our interactions. We're all metaphorical actors who are all fostering a consistent desired effect. Our outfits, our roles, our styles are all decided with knowledge in mind that there's an audience, and it's this act of fostering a desired effect that our identities are then created. As Goffman said himself, the maintenance of this surface of agreement, this veneer of consensus, is facilitated by each participant concealing his own wants-behind statements, which assert values to which everyone present is likely to give lip service. As a result, within this context, the actor can be sincere or insincere. To be sincere, there must be a total belief in the impression being produced. To be insincere is the refusal to believe. So, for the purpose of this video, this topic of gamification and personal expression is the lens of which I'll be using to analyze the arcs of the central 4 main characters. characters, which means the methodology this analysis will be using is to examine each character arcs in accordance with their roles in the team. This is so then we can examine how believing in what they do either changes them or deepens them. The ultimate analytical goal of this video essay is not to compare their journeys, but to see how they can be configured into a greater message. What does the entire show have to say about the role of emotions and the impressions we manage with others? The good, the bad, how to live? Because if there's one thing about superheroes when depicted lovingly, is they always show us a model way to live, without sounding too dramatic. Hal Jordan is exceptionally likable in the show, not just because he's voiced by Spider-Man himself, Josh goddamn Keaton, but they gave him layers in the most subtle of ways. On the surface, he has the young Captain Kirk swagger and impulsive personality, where he jumps before looking and figures it out before he lands, and he only gets away with it because he's a talented and observant strategist. However, underneath what seems to be immaturity is a deeply responsible person who always takes accountability without hesitation,
Which I unleashed on the universe.
and follows a strict code of ethics where life of all kind is always valued.
They deserve justice, which sometimes involves punishment, but not torture.
As a result, in order to enforce the same attitude with the rest of the crew, Hal ensures everyone always believes a positive outcome is possible, regardless of how bleak the situation gets. I think my favorite line he gives in the entire show is,
Look, I have no problem bringing a Red Lantern onto the team, but I will not tolerate pessimists.
Furthermore, he also maintains a pretty casual atmosphere aboard the ship where rules and sides are less important than simple informal camaraderie and a shared understanding of the situation at hand. In other words, Hal is basically all about tactically using good vibes for productive purposes. However, how do we rationalize the distance between Hal's actions, which run contrary to the rules of Green Lanterns, and the fact that he's always, managing his impression as a Green Lantern? I think the best way to visualize it is that Hal Jordan's Green Lantern identity is less of a set of performative constraints he's adhering to, but is more of a persona he uses for his own personal expression. I mean, literally, the first thing he does in the show is disobey the Guardians' orders and steals the Interceptor to investigate the Green Lantern killings, while the Guardians are more conservative about frontier space.
Let's postpone my lynching until I tell you a couple of things.
And also when Hal is influenced by the effects of yellow energy, greed. What brings him back is a list of important values, where being a Green Lantern is actually a low priority.
Can't turn my back on friends. Can't leave the job undone. I will give up this battery.
The concept of his duty and his mission is more about following his own personal code than the Green Lantern one. What Hal respects about being a Green Lantern are his comrades, and the way its core values encourages ingenuity and compassion, which aligns with his own values.
We're not lanterns because of these. We are lanterns because of this and this.
As a result, this is why wherever Hal goes, he can make a difference greater than any other Green Lantern. He thinks way more differently, his heart is bigger than his orders, and he has a simple talent just being inspirational in the most subliminally good vibe sort of way. Speaking of good vibes,
Sloppy, incomplete, careless.
Kilowog. While Hal still has a life on Earth, one he cares so much about that he wears a mask to protect it even in outer space,
The Green Lantern on my planet is Hal Jordan. I'm telling everyone.
which contributes to the tangible separation between his Green Lantern persona and his Hal Jordan one. The incredible tragedy of Kilowog is that he has nothing left. His wife and children perished when he lost his world. However, what brings him joy and gives him the self-esteem to stay composed and full of purpose is his role as a Green Lantern. It doesn't matter if it's being a Joe Sergeant for trainees or loyally following Hal's lead, even if Hal was in fact one of his trainees back in the day. Kilowog is loyal, brave, and giving. However, you have to earn this from him by holding yourself to a higher standard, which is where his tough love approach comes in. He doesn't revel in shouting at people. He does have fun with it, but it's never with the goal of tearing someone down or harming them. But instead, it's all about building someone up so eventually he can serve under them or with them. He believes what he's doing, and he believes other people can do it as well, or even better.
I'm happy here, molding, guiding, and nurturing young recruits so they realize their potential. The way, they're like my children. You useless, stumbling piece of stinking splat!
Dramaturgically, what Kilowog exhibits is an embracement of his role. To embrace a role is to disappear completely into the virtual self available in the situation, to be fully seen in terms of the image, and to confirm expressively one's acceptance of it. To embrace a role is to be embraced by it, which is in contrast with Hal Jordan to an extent. However, neither Hal or Kilowog have a real transformative arc in the show. What they have, instead, are temptations that try to stray them away from duty. The big one when it comes to Kilowog is that time when he got influenced by the yellow suit.
Yeah.
What they both show us is that the concept of theatricality is so deeply embedded into the ways we manage our impressions that identity is arguably in itself just a dramatic effect. Hal and Kilowog are stable forces that can define the situation in a way that directs everyone to conform to a set of behavioral expectations. So if the other actors stray too far away, they were embarrassed and are judged by their other fellow actors. Speaking of embarrassment, Razer. I'm kidding, I love Razer. Razer is an original character, and I have to say he has one of the most remarkable little redemption arcs I've seen. I went from I hate this guy, he just blew up a planet, to he's my boy, precisely because of how far they're willing to push him. Similar to how Razer has a strong set of ethics, distinct from the codes of the Red Lantern Corps, because, you see, he reluctantly blows up a planet.
For the greater good. And vengeance.
And similar to Kilowog, he overcame the trauma of losing his wife from his home planet's warlords infighting, but actually it was atrocities, by becoming a lantern.
You think more fighting will help? Our people need teachers and doctors and builders, not more soldiers.
He's always wanted to fight. It's the toughest, most resilient part of him that survived everything and easily complemented the ruthlessness of the Red Lanterns, especially since the Red Lanterns are fighting for revenge over the Guardians Manhunters wiping out their side of space. But then the Red Lanterns too are also blowing up innocent planets that are refusing to submit to them. So how is that different? Razer is not loyal to the Red Lanterns, he is loyal to his own rage, himself. Therefore, like Hal, being a lantern is not about submitting to an identity, but using it to express his own. A fiery sense of justice and a fiery belief in punishment. In fact, he was even happy to surrender himself to execution and then imprisonment afterwards.
It doesn't matter. I'm still the one who pressed the button. In my heart, I'm guilty of murder.
As a result, Razer explores a different tension than Kilowog and Hal, because he actually has an arc. The man he ends the show as, and the man which walked the very first steps in the beginning are totally different. In fact, he literally says it himself in episode 19.
I have changed in so many ways. Thanks to you.
What changes for Razer is his movement from valuing hatred to valuing hope in a way that doesn't displace his anger, but instead restructures it. Therefore, it's a form of righteousness, a motivation to do what is right. This is an incredibly gradual process that requires him to regularly contradict the impression management he's doing as the uncaring, angry Red Lantern guy, until he stops believing it himself. A skilled actor can manipulate the impression his or her impressions produce to conform to expectations, and thus impose his or her own definition of the situation. Actors can sometimes betray their game, as in the case of slips of the tongue, unspoken words, and double dealing. It is a set of strategies to gain credibility that are then put in place, such as concealing, blurring, lying, deceiving, or faking. What we see with Razer is someone outgrowing one persona to construct a new one, which could perform differently, and the reason why he does so is in no small part due to the influence of Aya, who would regularly argue his brutal outlook was not useful, and instead would direct him to look towards something better.
I ran a detailed analysis of the rhythm and meter of your Red Lantern Oath, and have created an alternative that should also be effective.
Like the rose which grew from his abandoned home, his heart grew 3 times more. That's so stupid. Why'd I end the paragraph that way? Anyway, speaking of stupid, originally I couldn't be less dismissive of Aya, the cliched onboard AI robot who wants to feel emotions and wants to fall in love. She's all about actively managing herself to have the impression of an organic life. But then the twist happens. She turns off her emotions after being rejected by Razer to defeat the Anti-Monitor. However, she ends up identifying more with the Manhunter afterwards. Then double twist. She's not actually entirely an AI, but part of her is extracted from the Green Lantern's battery's living being, Ion. So she's not entirely machine. She can't entirely turn off her emotions, and Razer can in fact fall in love with her and not be a creep. Which made me laugh, because what does that say about Joker from Mass Effect? There are 2 phases to her story, the phase of constructing a consistent organic life-like persona, and constructing a consistent and emotionless machine-like persona. However, what separates the latter phase from the former is that she is acting entirely out of cynicism. She doesn't actually believe in what she's doing. Every time she sees Razer, she backs off, she avoids wiping out star systems with life in them, and that discovery is what causes Hal to still reason with her in the end. Her goal of wanting to remake the universe so organic life is replaced by unfeeling machines so everyone is spared of pain is more of a hissy fit than a rational cold conclusion.
Is this the emotionless machine mind that wants to fix the universe?
The distinction between sincerity and cynicism is what drives Aya's entire tale, where to be cynical is to hold back emotions and then sometimes tactically release them in order to make the audience believe. However, to be sincere, there is the freedom to act unconsciously, because other performers on the stage can overlook or compensate the shortcomings of the performance. words, the audience can protect the actors, pretend to ignore the fault, believe the explanations, help them to restore the situation. This benevolent behavior is often due to an identification of the audience for the characters. What Hal is able to do is influence Aya's cynical performance by refusing to interact with her differently. He doesn't stop reciprocating respect and treat her as one without a soul.
You're one of us, Aya.
The reciprocal influence each actor of an interaction has is in itself a form of representation, where identity is constructed because it's where identity is believed. This, and the way Razer just can't kill her in the end, is what in the end finally restores her. He loves her, and as part of her love, she's then willing to upload a virus that seeks out and eradicates all copies of her in order to save the universe. But she has a feeling that she'll see Razer again. Heaven, maybe, but in reality, she was talking about a copy of her in a cab somewhere. The show's message is a typical superhero deal of people learning to overcome their differences in order to overcome a threat they can't solve individually. However, the undercurrent, more sophisticated drama is the message of holding yourself to a higher standard, where it does not matter if you don't reach your goal. The struggle itself yields its own rewards, because the way you interact with people and the way they interact with you, it is when the dramatic effect, that is your identity, is complete. In other words, it was always about becoming the person you were meant to be, and that person, you don't need to figure it all out. You just need to feel it and let that lead you. Not being led by rules or led by your worst instincts, but by the best part of yourself that's represented in your interactions with others. This is the central concept, which unifies everyone. Hal and his faith with people within and beyond the harmony of his Green Lantern performance, Kilowog, who brings people up, Razer, who let his hope quell his anger because the people around him interacted with him as someone more than what he saw, and Aya, who was able to redeem herself because those important around her refused to believe her facade. So I'm going to conclude this video with a set of questions that you can ask yourself actually, and using what you've learned from this bloody Green Lantern video, you'll hopefully have the vocabulary to answer. Number 1, in regards to the impression you manage every day, be it at work or at home, do you feel more like you're expressing yourself or more like you're just sort of following a set of constraints? Number 2, how much does the impression you manage increase your self-esteem? Number 3, is there a division between the expected way you're expected to perform and your own personal sense? Number 4, if interactions in themselves are a form of representation, then how do you find yourself in your regular day-to-day interactions? I hope this act of re-examination helps you, and yeah, I don't know, Green Lantern's a good show.
Okay, I think he's had enough.
Have you finished your recharging ritual?
No.
I have something that might help. I ran a detailed analysis of the rhythm and meter of your Red Lantern Oath, and have created an alternative that should also be effective.
The power of the Crimson Red can lead your soul away from dread and heal the deepest wounds of hate. Let no one else decide your fate.
I detect no change in your metabolic rate. Have you recharged?
Yes. Thank you, Aya. Your concern is appreciated.
So this video was supposed to come out after a Penguin analysis on the recent show, but I decided against it because I didn't want to just analyze the first half of the show. I wanted to analyze the entire thing in one go, especially since I kept writing in circles after a certain point. That too is also about analyzing using Irving Goffman's presentation of everyday life. However, it's more rigorous when it comes to going through all 6 elements of impression management. You know, persona, performance, stage, the roles and the teams, and the personal style, because I sort of wanted to dive into the ambiguity of Oz, Sophia, and Vic's transformation information. So I've decided to delay that and make it like the most definitive analysis ever of those characters and that entire show. Anyways, I'm experimenting with longer videos currently. I'm trying to strive for everything to be between half an hour to maybe even over 2 hours, depending on how long this Harley Quinn video is going to be. So special thanks to everyone on Patreon. You guys are of truly reassuring presence, to say the least, when it comes to me spending even more time making these stuff.
It's your BFF, Vigilante